James and Ben here for OddsChecker US, taking a look at this Saturday's UFC Orlando card. Really cool main event between Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and Kevin Holland, but we're actually going to start first in the middleweight division on the main card. We've got Eric Anders taking on Kyle Dawkins, and right now on OddsChecker, you can see there Kyle Dawkins is the favorite. Most books having him about minus 200 around there, 2-1 favorite. The comeback on Anders is plus 185-ish. Who you liking here, Ben?
Yeah, so I think this fight's interesting because the line looks a little wide at first, and immediately I think Dawkins is going to win this fight. But honestly, the line looks a little wide for me. I think I'm going to maybe look just to take him by sub later in the week, just to kind of knock that juice down, because I think if he's going to win, that's probably how he's going to win. 9 of his 11 wins are by submission. And on the same side, Anders, he does have pretty good takedown defense. So I think this is going to be a more interesting fight than the line suggests. I think it is closer. But in the end, I do think Dawkins will probably be able to find a submission. He's found quite a few in the UFC now, Jamie Pickett. And I don't know. I think if Anders is able to keep this on the feet, it's going to be a pretty good fight, because Dawkins just did get knocked out by Roman Dolidze. So, that's an interesting aspect to it too. Can Anders find the finish here? Maybe. He has knockout power. But I do think at the end of the day, Dawkins can win this fight.
I like Dawkins in this fight as well. Two things. You mentioned the Dolidze fight. He got his face broken in that fight, and he's fighting not that much longer after that. I'm a little bit concerned, for a 2-1 favorite in that regard. The other thing is Anders had a very close fight in his last outing, one that, some people felt like maybe could have gone the other way. That was against Jung Young Park, who's a split decision loss there. So he's looking to rebound in a big way. I know both of these guys, it's the last fight on their UFC contract, so a lot of urgency here for someone to get the win. I think this should be closer to even odds. I know Anders is older, but he's also fought better opposition overall. I'm going to pick Dawkins just because I do think he has some advantages, like you mentioned, the ground game. Going to have a bit of a height and reach, and he's a little bit younger as well. But this is one I'm just staying away from. I'm not even going to bet the Anders side because he's disappointed me so many times that I don't want to, sort of have any investment there. But if I got to pick, I'm going to go Kyle Dawkins to get it done in this one. Okay, next fight we're going to look at here is also in the middleweight division. We've got Jack Hermansson taking on Roman Dolidze, who we just mentioned there. It was supposed to be Jack Hermansson and Derek Brunson. In comes in Dolidze. And right now, if you look on OddsChecker, you'll see that Jack Hermansson is the favorite right here, as you can see. He is coming in close to almost 2-1 odds. Dolidze, the comeback is plus money. Which way are you going here?
Another interesting one, because Dolidze, I do think he's the better finisher. Obviously, we were just talking about that Dawkins fight, and then he stopped Phil Hawes in the first round. So two kind of grapplers there. And Dolidze is kind of dangerous everywhere. He's dangerous on the feet, he's dangerous on the ground. I think he's the better finisher. That being said, I think if this goes the distance, that likely means that Hermansson's been winning minutes. I think he's kind of more of the volume guy. And I think if this goes to a decision, that it's going to be Hermansson. That being said, I tend to favor the finisher usually in a fight, because if they can finish it, they're obviously going to win. And he's plus 160. I like those odds on him. I feel like he's the more dangerous guy in the fight. But like I said, maybe a good hedge spot here, because I wouldn't mind taking Hermansson by decision, and then also backing Dolidze by finish inside the distance.
You literally read my mind. I hate to interrupt you, but I'm feeling the exact same way. I think if Dolidze wins, it'll be by knockout. It's not going to be a decision. Yeah. He has the power. We saw that against, and granted, Phil Hawes has been knocked out a few times, so that is one thing to sort of preface. But so is Hermansson. Hermansson actually got knocked out by Jared Cannonier not that long ago. And we know that there's a possibility of him getting knocked out here. But I think the likely scenario is what you just mentioned there. I think Hermansson winning a decision. We saw against Edmund Shabazi, and he had a bit of a slow start, but was able to pick it up in the later rounds. I could see something similar happening here. Where he just avoids any sort of power from Dolidze and takes home a decision here. Not to mention the fact this is a big jump up in competition for Dolidze, going from Kyle Dawkins to Jack Hermansson, who at one point it looked like he was going to be a title challenger, but had a couple of setbacks, losing to Sean Strickland, for example. But yeah, I'm liking Hermansson here. I'm liking him by decision. You want to get a little creative here and maybe try and hedge and try and make some money. I would also take that Dolidze by knockout. Again, get creative with the odds there, but the pick here is going to be Jack Hermansson by decision. Okay, next fight we're going to look at here is in the heavyweight division. We've got Tai Tuivasa taking on Sergey Pavlovich. And right now on OddsChecker, you'll see here Sergey Pavlovich, what a 2-1 favorite here on most books. Who are you going with here?
This one is tough for me. I don't know if I can confidently pick a side, especially, in a heavyweight fight, someone's always live with the power, but especially with Tai Tuivasa. He was on that crazy knockout run, which eventually led him up to Cyril Gane, who was a bad stylistic matchup. And I don't necessarily think that Pavlovich is Cyril Gane, but it is a similar kind of matchup in a sense when you look at the reach advantage. I mean, 75 inches to 84 inches. That is a massive reach advantage for Sergey. And I think if he can use that to its effectiveness, then he will have this fight kind of on lockdown. He can do sort of the same thing Gane did. Like I said, it won't quite be the same fight, but if he can kind of take notes from that fight and, not get knocked out, he has a good shot to maybe even win a decision here. I mean, Tuivasa landed some good shots in that Cyril Gane fight, but at the end, he ended up getting put away. And I don't know. It's a heavyweight fight. It can go either way. I tend to lean Sergey here, but minus 220 is a lot against Tai Tuivasa, who before that Cyril Gane fight was kind of knocking out just everyone who stood in his way. And Tai Tuivasa has also been fighting the better opposition. I think he's been fighting the better fighters over the last few fights now, and Sergey's just kind of starting that step up. So I think it's definitely worth a shot to take Tai Tuivasa here, but I can't necessarily make a confident pick either way for me.
I have a totally different read on this fight. This is why I love when you and I get to, kind of, we don't talk before the show so people know. So we kind of get this fresh reaction here. I really like Tuivasa here. I think I don't understand why he's the underdog. I guess the only reason you could say is the fact that he is coming off a loss not that long ago to Gane in a fight where he was finished. But I think Ty's a far superior striker. I mean, we've seen him knock out Derek Lewis. We've seen him knock out so many different opponents. How many times has Cyril Gane been knocked out in a fight? You just don't see that happen. And I remember watching that fight. I had money on Gane in that fight. I'm thinking, here we go again. This is the the Derek Lewis fight all over again with him getting finished. The other thing we got to mention, he's got a chin on him. Derek Lewis threw the kitchen sink at him in that first round. He was able to survive, came back and beat Lewis in the second round. I know Pavlovich is younger, or well, he's not younger. He's a year older. I know that he's sort of younger in terms of his career compared to Tuivasa and everything, and hasn't taken as much damage. But I think Tuivasa, even though it's only 3 rounds, he just needs to land one shot, and I think he hits it on point. So I'm picking Tuivasa. I'm betting Tuivasa, and I'm also going to take Tuivasa by knockout. I think there's very few guys with the type of power he has in that weight class. And you could also argue that Pavlovich's last win over Lewis himself, bit of a weird finish. I mean, I don't think it was controversial, but it was, Lewis it wasn't like a clean knockout, whereas Tuivasa is cleanly knocking guys out. I'm going Tuivasa by knockout. I think he proves everyone wrong, and maybe I'm out to lunch. Maybe this is the decline of Tuivasa, but I feel pretty confident he goes up there and takes out Pavlovich. So I'm going with the dog in this one. Okay, next fight we're going to look at is in the flyweight division. We've got Matthias Nicolau taking on Matt Schnell. And right now, the odds makers on OddsChecker, who we're doing the show for, I should probably know that. They are heavily in favor of Matthias Nicolau. Minus 380. This line has gone up, Ben. I earlier in this week, I was looking at this fight, and I believe he was closer to 2-1. But yeah, big favorite here for Nicolau. Does Schnell have a chance? Who are you picking with here?
I do like Nicolau. The line's just too wide. Maybe take him inside the distance, knock that juice down, or throw him in a parlay. That's not a bad idea. I mean, he's really polished fighter. Kickboxing is solid. Takedowns are slick. I mean, he's kind of solid everywhere. And I don't know how he was ever released originally, but he kind of came back with a vengeance, won every fight since. He's had a really good second stint. I just think this line's wide. Schnell could catch him with something, but at this price, I'd say just throw Nicolau in a parlay and forget about it. He'll probably win the fight, but I don't really have a strong lean on him.
Yeah, I like Nicolau a lot too. I know some people will talk about Schnell winning his last fight, but that was a fight he was losing. It was very, not typical of Matt Schnell to come back and win that fight. One of the best comeback fights we've ever seen of all time. But my issue with Schnell is just the amount of damage he's taken throughout his career. I mean, he's been finished a number of times. Nicolau, very dangerous, still 29 years old, not even in the prime of his career yet. I somewhat agree with the odds here and him being such a big favorite, but yeah, I don't know what the play is here because I could see him taking Schnell to a decision with how durable we saw Schnell in his last fight and be able to survive some stuff. But then we've also seen Schnell finished a bunch of times too. So to me, it's I'm just staying away from this one. I don't even think my sort of rule is if the parlay, if you're going to parlay someone, if it's over minus 300, then that's usually one, or you're not getting a ton of value there. But yeah, I'm going to pick Nicolau. I'll say by decision. I think Schnell survives and Nicolau gets it done that way. So yeah, going to go Matthias Nicolau, get it done. All right, co-main event. Very curious to get your thoughts on this one. We've got Rafael dos Anjos, the former lightweight champion, moving back up to 170, take on Brian Barberena. And check this out. Biggest favorite on the card is Rafael dos Anjos, if I can find his name here. He is minus 540 against Bam Bam. Your thoughts? Who wins?
I think at these odds, I'm going to have to take a shot on Bam Bam. I get it because, more likely than not, RDA will get this fight to the ground. But I mean, if Bam Bam can keep it standing, or even, every round starts standing, so RDA has to get it to the ground for it to go there, obviously, because it starts standing. But if Bam Bam can keep this standing, get some striking going, I mean, he's live. He's live for a knockout. We just saw, I know it was a bit of a different fighter in Rafael Fiziev because he's a better finisher, but I mean, Bam Bam has a few knockouts. He's just coming off a knockout himself. He's not the most prolific finisher, but he has good striking. And RDA, we have seen him knocked out a few times. Granted, it's only been to the best of the best. I mean, Eddie Alvarez, when he got knocked out in this fight, and there wasn't a lot of, his chin held up strong until just his last time out. So he's not an easy guy to knock out. But I mean, at the odds, it's worth a stab. I think this is a really wide line for Bam Bam. But I mean, at the end of the day, RDA is probably going to get takedowns. He's probably going to maybe sub him, but maybe coast to a decision. I think it's worth a stab on Bam Bam, but I don't necessarily love either fighter in this one.
I think the odds are way off here. I would have RDA as the favorite because I think on paper he's the better fighter, but I think people are forgetting he's moving back up here. Barberena has been a mainstay at welterweight for a very long time. The guy hits like a truck. We've seen him get a number of finishes. He just finished, Robbie Lawler in his last fight. I don't get it. And not to mention, Dos Anjos is coming off a knockout loss to a really, really good fighter in Fiziev, who, I mean, that's a lot of damage to take over your career. And his age, he's 38, I think, or close to it. 38 years old. I think people forget Barberena is only 33. I know he's been in the UFC for a while, but that's not that old. I'm going to pick RDA because I do think he's the better fighter on paper. There's no way I would bet him at minus 540. I'm definitely going to lay some money on Barberena. I think he's absolutely a live dog in this fight, and I think there could be a possibility of him getting a knockout here. So I'll be taking Barberena. I'll be betting Barberena, and I'll also be maybe looking at that knockout prop too. Just you never know. Again, it's a different weight classes. Guys perform. You tend to see guys that are the mainstays in the weight class coming out on top. You see like a Jan Blachowicz and Israel Adesanya, the size difference. And I realize RDA used to fight at 170, but that was part of the reason was that he was getting bullied by guys like Michael Chiesa, and that's what forced him to move back down. So I'll pick Dos Anjos because I do think he's the better fighter on paper, but at those odds, you have to take Barberena a little bit, right? So that's my thoughts on the fight.
Definitely. Let's
get to the main event, sticking in the welterweight division. Got Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and Kevin Holland, and right now on OddsChecker, this line has been kind of back and forth, but right now we see Kevin Holland as the favorite, about minus 151, minus 160 around there. The comeback on Thompson plus 135. Who are we going with here? Who's getting it done over 5 rounds?
These odds disappoint me because I was hoping I could get Holland as an underdog, because now I'm actually wondering, should I take Wonderboy at underdog odds? Because, of course, it seems like when Holland has been losing lately, it's been to really, really good wrestler grapplers. I mean, Hamza Chimaev obviously lost their submission. No surprise, really. And then he lost to Marvin Vettori and Derek Brunson. So he's been losing to a lot of kind of really good wrestlers and grapplers. So this fight being against another striker, because we know this fight's going to be on the feet. I mean, unless something crazy happens. We know Holland's been working on his wrestling. He got that submission over Tim Means, but this fight will probably stay standing. In that case, it's really hard to fade Wonderboy. But then again, he's almost 40. He's getting up there in age. Have we seen a little bit of a decline with him? Maybe. I mean, he's coming off those 2 losses in a row. He's 2-4 in his last 6. Maybe a little bit of a decline here, but I mean, he's one of the best strikers in the division and in the UFC. So, I mean, it's hard to bet against Wonderboy if the fight's going to play out on the feet. But Holland, it seems like his striking has looked so excellent. He's only been losing to wrestler grapplers. So it's kind of like a clash of heads here. And I think the underdog at the end of the day is the one I'm going to go with, just because of the odds in what I think is going to be a really close fight. So I'll back Wonderboy, even though it sounds really backwards, because I'll back him just because the odds, even though I think Holland will win. But this fight's really hard. I'm only taking Thompson because he's the underdog, which sounds kind of weird.
No, I get it. I mean, here's the weird thing, right? How both of these fighters lost their fights recently. I mean, not Holland. Well, Holland did lose to Chimaev his last fight. We can forget about that. That was just weird circumstances. But you even look at his losses at middleweight to Brunson and Vettori and these guys. It was because he got out wrestled. Same thing happened to Stephen Thompson against Gilbert Burns and Bilal Muhammad. Same sort of thing. So that's not going to happen in this fight. So it really comes down to who's the better striker. Now, on paper, I think Wonderboy is the better striker. But the question is, are we getting the Wonderboy that we've seen in the last 2 fights, or are we getting the Wonderboy that that, looked pretty good against Vicente Luque a few years ago when he fought him in New York. I would tend to think there is a bit of a decline here. The age is, to me, what really stands out. He's 39 years old. Holland's only 30, and Holland also has a height and reach advantage in this fight. He's 6'3" with an 81-inch reach. Thompson is only 6 feet tall with a 75-inch reach. I'm telling you guys, in case of giving you guys a headache or anything like that, take the fight goes the distance. It's plus money. I know it's 5 rounds, but I just don't see, like, Thompson's not a finisher. Like, we really have not seen him go out there and finish guys in quite some time. Conversely, with Holland, I know he has been finishing his opponents, but Thompson, if you look at his record at 170, he does not get finished. Like, even in those fights against Burns and Muhammad, who I think are much better than Kevin Holland, they weren't able to finish him either. So I think that's the play here. I'm surprised it's plus money. I guess they do feel like there will be a finish somewhere, but I think that's the play here, is the fight goes the distance. Now, in terms of a pick, I got to go Holland. He's younger. To me, if you have two guys that are kind of similar, one might be better on paper, but one's older, I'll go with the younger guy. That's typically what you have to do. I think, Holland is not a finished product yet. I think with Wonderboy, he is the finished product. I think Wonderboy was better a few years ago when he was fighting Tyron Woodley and nearly, winning the welterweight title, as opposed to what we're getting now, which is a guy who, I don't know what he is. I don't think he's a contender because he can't seem to beat guys like Burns or Bilal Muhammad here. So, I'm going to go, I'll go Kevin Holland. So I'm going to take the fight goes the distance. I think I'm also going to take Kevin Holland by decision, just because I think there's, a possibility here. If you look at Kevin Holland winning by decision or technical decision, it's plus 300, plus 400. That's worth a stab, in my opinion. So again, we're talking about two durable guys. That's going to be my pick. So I'm going with, we're on opposite sides in the main event here.
Yeah. Well, here's another thing. I'm actually switching.
Okay, let's hear it.
Back to Holland, because
I convinced you once again. That's good. Yeah.
Hearing from you and then also looking at it again, because I just remembered I didn't look at the reach advantage, but I was like, I bet Holland's, because remember, he's a middleweight.
Coming down.
He was fighting a middleweight, so he's got a very long reach for welterweight, and he has a 6-inch reach advantage here. So that is going to play into effect. I mean, that's definitely going to be a factor here, because Thompson's not going to be looking to take him down. Holland's drop to welterweight was a big deal against like wrestlers and grapplers, but if he's not worried about being taken to the ground, his weight isn't necessarily a huge issue here as far as like strength or anything, and he's got the 6-inch reach advantage, which definitely plays to his advantage in this fight. So because of that, I am switching. I hope the odds get a little bit lower, because maybe I'll take Holland by decision, because I definitely agree here. I don't think he's going to finish this fight. So Holland by decision is probably the play for me, just because then it's plus money. You don't have to lay that juice there on the money line. So I'm switching.
There you go. No, completely understand it there. Okay, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you guys cash your bets this weekend. We'll be back next week. A bit of a switch up in the main event for next week. It's now going to be a vacant light heavyweight title fight between Jan Blachowicz and Magomed Ankalaev. So make sure you tune in for that. For myself, for Ben, hope everyone has a great rest of your week. Hope you guys all had a great Thanksgiving as well. And we will see you next week.